I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater, but today I'm coming to you from the cutting room in New York City. We're with Kirk Douglas. It's great to see you. Thanks for coming in, man. Appreciate you making the trip in to sit down with us today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, so man, so much going on. Quite a career, and you got lots going on today as well. It's a very cool thing to see everything you've been involved in.
Thank you. It's been a complete blessing, and just it's been an adventurous journey.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, you've got to do some amazing things that we want to talk about, but take us back to the beginning. Holbrook, Long Island, second grade, seeing a tobacco Les Paul.
Yes. I was at my friend Chris Garcia's house, and his brother Rich had that Tobacco Burst Les Paul copy. I forgot the brand. I was just, when I saw that thing up close, I just couldn't take my eyes off it. And then, that combined with, looking through his record collection, seeing all these, Van Halen records and Kiss records, and just, seeing that object that was there in front of me was also in a lot of these pictures, so that was, when I was going to school and when I was meeting friends, but then my influences at home were, the church music my parents would play on Sundays, the part of the Anglican church, so a lot of songs of praise, like melodic hymns and so forth. But on Saturday nights, we would have the parties in the basement. My parents are Jamaican. I was the Yankee that was born here. Friends would come over and stay till like 3 a.m, just playing records, playing rockers. And I just remember from, a young age, just looking at the 45s and, before I could even read, but just being fascinated by the colors. And so music was just a real immersive experience.
Yeah.
And then just as I got older, when you got to see the source of where this music came from, I got really fascinated.
Right. So did you take lessons then, or how did you start learning guitar?
I took lessons beginning at 10 years old from a guy named Dan McCarthy, who's still in New York, and who I am on a mission to go find one of these days. We have the same birthday. And he was just a fantastic teacher, and just a guitar buddy, just somebody I could just ask about the songs that I was interested in, and just the approach he had was just, what's the music you like? Let's learn how to play the music that you like, and let's kind of peek into how that's made theory-wise. And that was just so much fun, just like decoding how to play, at the time the popular song was Journey's Open Arms, and just trying to play stuff like that. And then when I'd go to camp, I went to a Christian camp, an Episcopalian camp, and then there was a lot of folk songs, that, so I'd get exposed to the chord changes from the folk stuff. And then as I got older, I got into jazz band, and I started playing in like Battle of the Bands and stuff like that. But growing up on Long Island, there's a heavy, rock presence,
Sure.
WBAB, WRCN, those are the stations that, I'd hear a lot of, in my surroundings. But I really enjoyed the balance of the music I encountered when I'd go to school, and then the music that I would be immersed in at home, and there's a lot of funk, a lot of, R&B being played at home. But my dad was always into like a lot of Elton John. I remember just hearing Daniel, coming up from the basement, and just hearing Commodore's Easy like Sunday morning, and just, the guitar solo to Easy. That just, when I heard that, I was just, I want to be able to like do stuff like that.
Right.
But and then as I got older, I got, like when I was like 16, that's when I first saw Living Color and Vernon Reed on MTV, and that blew my mind wide open, because for the heavy music that I wanted to do, I didn't see much of us doing it. Mm-hmm. And so it was great to see that, and then discovering bands like Fishbone, and discovering, Bad Brains, and then simultaneously, in my years of teenage angst, getting into, bands like The Cure and The Smiths that were, that I felt a connection with emotionally when, when you start getting, dissed by girls and stuff like that. I found that music to be a comforting soundtrack to the things I was experiencing.
Right.
And I got into bands like Cocteau Twins, and then I started really veering towards, textural guitar styles. When I look back on my teenage years, it was just kind of like this evolving sort of cauldron of different styles, you know, like constantly like kind of brewing. You know, I sort of long for those days where you could really just like lose yourself and didn't have to, when there were less responsibilities. You know, my only responsibilities was like do my schoolwork, practice my guitar, you know, do the dishes. You know,
right.
Life is so simple.
But all that broad range of listening, having big ears and an open mind with the musical styles and things, that all had to factor in then when, of course, you made the move to the Roots in 2003 and started doing all those styles with Jimmy Fallon's show.
Yeah. I mean, my trajectory was I moved into the city to join a band called Binsey Poplars, and that was a band that inspired by a lot of that sort of shoegaze stuff from the 90s and very melodic, female vocalist, Mary Askew. But when I moved into the city, that band kind of broke up, and then I just sort of was released into this world where I didn't have to be in one band, and I found myself playing in like 10, 11 different bands, in the evening, and during the day I was teaching preschool. So the preschool gig, that was what enabled me to stay in the city and afford to be in the city, because I really wasn't getting paid from those bands.
Right.
But the experience and everything I learned was priceless.
Right.
I remember seeing the Roots at a place called the Knitting Factory. I saw them. They performed at the Knitting Factory back when it was on on Leonard Street. They played 5 nights in a row, and I went to 3 out of those 5 nights because I was so impressed with them, and I was so just into the music, into just the way that they framed the music. I was like, I could see myself being in a band like that. Those were my literal thoughts.
Right.
And yeah, you'll never know the places you'll go.
Yeah.
I met the manager, Rich Nichols, when I was playing at a club, SOBs, which I believe is still there. I was performing with Amani Uzuri, vocalist, and I met Rich Nichols, and I gave him my card, which had my, before cell phones, it had my, I didn't even have a beeper, it just had a number to my phone service. And he called me when the guitar player of the Roots left to join Incubus. And they had just released the album Phrenology, and they were just about to go on and tour, a world tour. And they called me before they went to Japan, and I auditioned with a handful of other people. Again, this predates social media, so now you can just go on your phone and see who you'd want to be your next guitar player or bass player or drummer or what have you. And but yeah, it was just word of mouth. Vernon Reed actually took guitar duties for a few weeks as they were looking for someone, because Vernon Reed had other engagements, being Vernon Reed.
Sure.
And and then I auditioned, I got the gig, and I met everybody in the airport on the way to Japan, and reminded everybody what my name was when we landed in Japan, and we did our first gigs.
Reminded them. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was, it was very fresh,
Yeah.
And I still had my ticket from the Knitting Factory shows, and I got everybody to sign the ticket, just because I didn't know how long I was going to last,
right?
And I was really digging the experience, and here we are, almost 20 years later.
20 years later, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So it's almost like you could almost think of the Roots as 2 bands. There's the TV show band, and then there's the live band, the recording band and things.
That's pretty accurate.
Can you tell us a little bit about the contrast between those 2 sort of juxtaposed versions of the band?
Well, the TV version, we see each other every day, and our mission is to get through the day, and whatever that may entail. And, I would say on a general day, you come in, and the job is to do the theme of the show that starts the show. We do the theme at the end of the show, the closing theme. And in between, we provide the music that takes you in and out of your commercial breaks. But then there are the days where we may be called to perform with a featured artist, or an artist may sit in with the Roots for an entire show. We haven't done much of that in a long time. We did that quite recently. We had Debbie Gibson sit in with us, Long Island Girl.
Yeah.
And that was for a special 80s episode we were doing. We had Ralph Macchio, we had Leah Thompson, and we had Jennifer Beals. So somebody thought, why don't we get Debbie Gibson to sit in?
Yeah.
But I mean, the range of people we've had sit in with us has, from people like Debbie Gibson to people like Chick Corea to Herbie Hancock. George Benson has sat in with us. Zach Wilde has sat in with us. Brad Whitford, Joe Perry, Steven Tyler, they've all sat in with us at separate times. Ace Frehley has sat in with us. Joey Francesco has sat in with us. And I am leaving out a whole bunch.
Sure.
But I'm speaking over the span of 12 years. These are the types of people that have sat in with us over the years. And then there's the songs that Jimmy does. Like sometimes we'll arrive and Jimmy wrote a song. We're performing it today, doing a tiny song, and we'll learn the song and we'll perform it with him. But there's a studio there at 30 Rock, and so where the roots begin to the TV roots begin to overlap with the live roots. We'll have people we've performed with Elvis Costello, and then there are the instances where you perform with somebody and it comes up in discussion, hey, maybe we should make an album. And so they'll come into our studio and we may jam, we may take some things from a rehearsal and listen to them say, hey, that could be a song. And that song, turns into other songs. And then before you know it, we have an album. That's what happened with Wise Up Ghost. So then, that's the sort of the recorded version, taking advantage of the fact that we have the facility to record there, and it leads to all these, collaborations.
Right.
And then you have the Roots on tour, and that's when we sort of, as long as we're able to get back to the Tonight Show, we will go, our last trip, we were in Japan for a week at the end of the summer. Mm-hmm. And, we'll do music that spans our entire career, music that's from when before we were even working with Jimmy Fallon, music from back in '93, and the live set that we do is sort of designed to engage the longtime Roots fan, as well as people that may have only heard about us from the Tonight Show,
right?
And as well as people that have only heard about us from Yo Gabba Gabba, or people that have only heard about us from Questlove's projects or Black Thought's projects. So there's a lot of different people that are coming to us for different reasons.
Sure.
But we, I think, whether conscious or not, crafted a live show that appeals to all these people, no matter how you discovered about this band.
Yeah.
And the standard is just, the same sort of delivery, nod to showmanship and to musicality that we were influenced by and we were inspired by. We were inspired by the James Browns, the Marvin Gayes, the Sly and the Family Stones, the Police, Kiss, Van Halen. It's all fair game.
You could almost mention anything.
Yeah,
You really could.
Yeah. It's music in a blender. It's been described as.
Right.
And if you've had the pleasure to hear Questlove DJ, the way that the Roots set is laid out is not that different from the way his DJ sets are laid out. Designed to, first and foremost, have the audience move. Make the audience move. And Black Thought's his delivery is just so rhythmic and engaging. It's the type of thing that allows us to play in countries where people may not understand what he's saying, but they can feel what he's saying because he's so rhythmic. And even his rhythm has melody in the same way that you tune a drum for a certain effect. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. But it begs another question, because when you have virtually every style all in the blender, but there's strong hip hop influence, there's neo soul, there's rock influence, and all those things. How do you manage the role of the guitar within all that, and the fact that there's a lot going on at any given time? So how do you think about the role of the guitar in that?
Well, like you say, there's a lot going on. There's so many people on stage. There's 2 keyboardists. There's we have bass, we have drums, we have a beat maker. Stro Elliott is basically a beat maker, so he's able to do percussion on. He uses the Ableton Push, so he can do percussion on it. but he could also play a piano solo or a guitar solo on the same instrument. So a lot of ground is covered. So guitar, you want to be able to just find your lane within all of that. And within our set, we'll do plenty of covers, classics, and just things that engage people that may have never heard a Roots song before. And the idea is to try to recreate those parts as faithfully as possible. Yeah, and when you think of hip hop itself, what is hip hop compiled of? It's compiled of largely samples. And what is the genre that hip hop would prefer to sample from? Well, it's all fair game. There's sample, think of Tone Loc and Wild Thing, think of Tribe Called Quest, and you're really looking at like a vast history of guitar and the role of guitar in different styles of music, and so it's super broad, and but it's part of the fun of kind of decoding, like, all right, what's the guitar doing in this, and what's making the whole thing work, When is it appropriate to like lay out, So when you come back in, it's like, oh, I was missing that, you know what I mean?
Right.
So knowing when to play, when not to play.
And of course, you get your spotlights as well. I mean, you step up and tear it up as well.
Yeah. It's a nice long show, so it's well paced. So when the guitar comes in to do a solo, it's like oh, okay, where'd that come from, And it's like it kind of gives you something that you maybe weren't getting from the whole show. But like with anything else, an audience gets sort of tired of hearing the same thing. So we utilize the fact that there's so many people on stage. Everybody gets their feature. Everybody gets their moments where some things are more prominent, some things are less prominent. And I think that's how we're able to make, an hour and a half show feel like, it was only 5 minutes.
Right. The contrast with that is 100-watt Heart and three-piece power trio, and the guitar obviously is carrying a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that I mean, you really get a chance to go after it in that situation.
Yeah. That's just a place for me to just explore my songwriting, and just try to do a lot of what I don't get to do in the Roots. I love melody, and I'm a big fan of like folk stuff, of Joni Mitchell, but I also love Zeppelin, and I love Richie Havens, and so 100-watt Heart is like, it's another situation where it's really I guess I can call myself a guitar nerd, but I love the sound of the instrument. I love, it's sort of, there's a part of me that's preserved that is still there, that when I discovered the guitar, it's like how I discovered the guitar. It's like the tone and the sound of it. It's just like, I could stick my head in a 412 cabinet and chill for a while and just enjoy that because I love the sound. Right. So I love music that reflects that, but I also love the delicate aspect of what the guitar can do as well. So I love the fact that you can have this sort of range in a project. During, when we got to the pandemic, when there were no live gigs and all there was virtual concerts and so forth, I took it upon myself to fleshing out ideas and sort of bringing my inner world, bringing it outward, and to like hear things that you're sort of imagining and going through the process where you can hear it coming out of the speakers in a satisfying way. There's something really life affirming about that, and Sweetwater came in really handy.
Oh, awesome!
when I was getting into that stuff, and I love music that allows me to imagine a guitar,
But your range even with 100-watt Heart is super broad, because the new single that you just released the last couple of days is a delicate kind of thing. But then you look at something like I Used to Be in the Circus off Turbulent Times. Yeah, that's an opposite end of the spectrum of what's going on there.
Yeah, but I mean, that's like artists. I mean, when you think of Hendrix is such an obvious one. You think of Hendrix and you think of what's the song? Waterfall. Waterfall. What's that one?
I'm drawing a blank too. We'll both sit here and draw a blank.
Yeah.
And we'll think of it as soon as the video's over.
Yeah, of course. But you think of like a song like Manic Depression, and you think of a song like Little Wing, or you think of May This Be Love. I think that's the song May This Be Love. There's so much range there. When you think of Zeppelin, you think of a song like The Rain Song or Going to California, and then you think of Achilles' Last Stand.
Totally different.
Completely different. And you think of Pink Floyd, and you think of the very first Pink Floyd album, and what that's like, and you think of when you think of Dark Side of the Moon, or you think of the later things, or The Wall. It's like it can't all be the same thing. I think that would make for a boring listening experience. And just the way that I was, when I'm thinking about like my high school years and the different music that I was exposed to, I'd like to create an experience where you can get a lot of range from one album, from one artist, and because there's so many emotions to be expressed. So when you're painting, you want to use many different brushes, and because of how we're able to record now with digital audio workstations, I was able to, say, okay, I hear horns on this part, and reach out to people in the Roots, and send a track and send my idea, sing an idea, and have it come back to me with that idea fully realized. That's a fascinating process to go through.
Right.
And I love doing that for other people. When people send me a track, and just do whatever it is that you would imagine, then you give the track back to them, and when you hear the response like, yes, this is exactly what we're looking for, that's also a gratifying experience. So when I think we're really blessed to have an outlet where all there's all the challenges that you have in life. Music is there to help you forget about these things. Music is there to help you process these things. And it's just there to just literally like soothe your soul, And it's I'm so thankful to be part of that process, to like have conversations like this. It leads to just amazing exchanges, and usually those exchanges have a lot to do with, there's the gear, there's, the nuts and bolts of it all, but it's all about trying to achieve a feeling. So that's what we're in the business of.
Right. And speaking of, and you've mentioned melody several times, you mentioned Easy and the solo there. I could sing you that solo right now. The down, kind of thing. The reason I bring that up is I hear that in your playing as well, and you're a vocalist, and I'm curious how the fact that you are vocalist and your influence of all this melody, how that impacts how you approach playing a solo.
A lot of it's on a good day. You're just literally playing what you want to hear, and the best moments are when you're like actually forgetting that you're playing guitar and your eyes are closed and you're just like playing what your soul wants to realize, and you're just like, when you're, I just saw the movie Soul, and that Questlove has his voice in, and they talk about like when you're in the zone, and you almost get to a place where you're not thinking, and what I love is like when the idea of a song as your soundtrack when you're walking throughout the day. So I may have a groove, and then I just leave here and I go from point A to point B, and I'm thinking about this groove, and then a melody like pops into my head, or a melody pops into my head like when I wake up in the morning, but it's based on a groove, and it's like, oh, that could be good for the guitar part, that could be good for the guitar solo, and then you sort of, when you have a good tone on your guitar, it's the equivalent of when somebody has a good, voice. And, all the gear that you spend your life, going through and trying this out and saying, no, I don't like that. It's like you're, chasing a sound, chasing a tone that's in your head. And it's sort of like an inner voice that you're chasing, and I have my limitations as a vocalist, and the guitar is like kind of there to like kind of make up for those limitations, you know, and be an extension of what I can't do vocally.
Sure, singing through the guitar. I love it. That's awesome. So speaking of tone and gear, we'd be remiss, of course, if we didn't talk about that. But it seemed like where you're at now was the result of a couple of, at least from the outside looking in, a couple of sort of important events. One, Vernon Reed giving you a Les Paul.
Oh, yes.
And the other, burning a couple of Les Pauls in a Heineken commercial.
Yeah.
Sort of led you to where you're at. Can you tell us sort of that story?
Yeah, well, when I moved into the city, one of the blessings about New York is just, you see a lot of people that you recognize that may have inspired you, like just walking around. And I went to an art opening, and I think it was at the Guggenheim, and Vernon Reed was there. And so I stepped to him, and I was like, I know how you feel about Carlos Santana, and the way you feel about Carlos is the way that I feel about you, just to let him know how important he was to me. Then I moved into the city, and I got to see him again, and we got to have coffee, and it was like just being like in a Vernon Reed article, just getting to talk to the man, And at the time, I started getting the gigs I was telling you about, and I remember Vernon and we bonded over this book about Hendrix, and that particular book was dedicated to Vernon, and when I mentioned the book to him, he was like, all right, this is a deep book, we should have a conversation about this. I was on my way to a gig with a drag queen that I was playing with, Hedda Lettuce, and I randomly saw Vernon in the street, and he called to me. He was like, hey, Kirk, what's up? And he's like, oh, what are you doing now? And I said, oh, I'm about to play with Hedda Lettuce. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm about to play with The Roots at the Knitting Factory. That was one of those gigs I was telling you about. And he also asked me when my birthday was. So I told him. And then 3 months later, I got a call from him telling him to meet me up at his crib. And I went there, and I stayed in the hallway, and he came out with a huge flight case and put it down on the ground, and he opened it, and I saw a gold top Gibson Les Paul, and he explained that this is the guitar he used when he went to play with Ronald Shannon Jackson and the Decoding Society. And it's from, I think, in the early 70s or late 60s. He said, if we never ever talk again, that's cool. I'm not trying to buy your friendship, but I want you to have this guitar. This is yours now. Wow. And he said, the only thing I ask is maybe one day you may, want to pass that guitar on to somebody else. And I was like, you can't be serious. And then he was like, you better just take it before I change my mind. And so I picked it up, and I walked all the way down from 30th Street all the way down to Grove Street, where I was living at the time. And it was a heavy guitar in a heavy case, and it felt light as a feather because I was walking on air. And but years later, a few months ago, I was having conversations with Vernon, and he was mentioning that he's like, all right, you're with Gibson now. He's like, maybe I wouldn't mind getting a Les Paul again, and then on another occasion we spoke, and he's like, I wouldn't mind, you have your signature guitars with Gibson, what's up with Captain Kirk's signature guitar? And I'm thinking, but he just asked if I could get him a gold top, and had some conversations with people at Gibson, and figured that maybe the appropriate thing would be if we could arrange for a gold version of my signature guitar. Nice. So Vernon and we went out to lunch, and I had it hidden away at the coat check. And then when we were done, they brought the guitar case to me, and he assumed that was my guitar. But as we were walking out, I put it down, and I was like, all right, well, Vernon, I just want to let you know, I'm not trying to buy your friendship. If we never ever talk again, that's cool, but this is yours now. And open it, and it was a gold version of that's beautiful of my signature guitar. Just to be able to have exchanges like that, just to be able to have moments like that, just blows my mind that I could even get to tell a story like that. Right, that's so cool. Both of them, That's so cool. And you asked about something else. Well, that sort of led you to becoming a Gibson player at that point. Yes, yeah. So I was only in the Roots for a short amount of time. Maybe it was about like a year and a half or 2 years when I started to meet the people from Gibson's when their showroom was in the old, I think it was the old Hit Factory, I believe, in Midtown. But I had a friend, Martin Luther, and that was also in the Roots, that was doing showcases at their showroom. And I got to meet the Gibson people. And I was offered a spot in a commercial, a Heineken commercial. And when I got that offer, I called Gibson. I was like, I'm doing something on TV. Maybe this is a good time for us to work together. And what it entailed was, me auditioning for a band, playing a ripping solo, and at the end, throwing the guitar on the ground and lighting it on fire. And, the catch was and everybody's clapping, going crazy, but then I put the fire out with a Heineken, which,
Sure.
now we have the wrong guitar player because clearly he does not know the value of a Heineken. So it involved getting a guitar to burn and a guitar to keep. And I remember, doing the commercial. I burned the guitar, and the director was like, "All right, let's get the other guitar in." I was like, "Get the other guitar in? That's the guitar I'm trying to keep here." And I wound up having to burn that too. But what wound up happening is it wound up looking pretty cool. And I gave that guitar to Matt Brewster from 30th Street Guitars, and he sort of cleaned it up and got into being fully functioning even better. Just kind of tricking it out, customizing the guitar. And that's kind of my main axe to use on the road with the Roots, because I'm not precious about it,
right?
Because it's been through the fire, but it also has a great tone, and its playability is perfect, and it's sort of kind of like a bit of a good luck instrument at this point.
And a great story too.
Yeah,
right?
for real. So
but don't try this at home, kids. That's
that's the lesson.
Right. Well, that's so cool. And you've gone on to have two different signature SGs with Gibson since then.
Yeah. My decision to do the SG was, I guess, I felt there were so many Les Paul signature axes, and I at the time I had gotten one of those late '60s walnut 3 pickup SGs, and I was a big fan of the look of that guitar, and I kind of wanted to do a modern take on it. So that's where with my first signature guitar, you had a knob for the middle pickup. On the toggle switch functioned as a toggle switch and also as a knob for the middle pickup. Mm-hmm. Great idea, but not totally.
Functional.
It wasn't sustainable, because like all pots go bad sometimes, but this was a very special pot that was not very easy to get.
Right.
So, but the first signature guitar was fantastic, and I loved the sound, the look of it, and when it was time to consider doing a second one, I saw the SG as there's the Gibsons that I use at work on on the Tonight Show, and but I wanted sort of like the kind of off-road guitar, and that's sort of what I thought of the SG as, the guitar that I liked to, that was good for studio applications, and just something, I wanted something to do like kind of like a wild color, that was the green, and also something more calm, that was the black, and I just wanted to do kind of like an updated version of the first one, and sort of, kind of address the issues like with the toggle switch we were speaking about. Now the one of the tone controls where the rhythm tone would be on a Les Paul or SG, that winds up being your volume for the middle pickup.
Right.
And I also wanted to include an extra volume knob, like a kind of a global volume knob that would allow you, so if you had any pickup combination, you can raise or lower the volume of said pickup combination via the global volume knob. I did that customization on my original signature guitar, and I wanted that option available for my next signature guitar.
Right. You've got it right there where you can get your little finger.
Yeah, because I like to do a lot of volume swells.
Right.
So for all the years that I couldn't afford a volume pedal, I worked very hard to like learn how to use the volume knob with my pinky. So and it's kind of still that way to this day. So I wanted a guitar that sort of reflected that.
Yeah, and you're good at it. I hear you doing the Van Halen thing and playing lines that way.
Yeah, I really enjoy the sort of the violin effect.
Yeah, very cool. Man, you got so much going on. You're releasing new songs on social medias, where I'm finding them anyway, is as you post them up there. I'm checking them out, so people got to stay tuned and check that out.
Yeah, it's a great way to stay connected with your audience and sort of have like a kind of a direct communication with people and to get direct feedback on things. And the music that's on the new record, it was conceived during a time where my wife and kids, they left to go to Denmark for a year. They only lasted 7 months over there, but that was 7 months of me being by myself in New York that had most things shut down at the time.
Right.
So I had a lot of time on my hands, and I didn't have a lot of family. But I had a lot of gear, and that allowed me the time to really like go deep into the archives of things, ideas I've recorded, little melodies and so forth, and really like kind of flesh things out. And it was a great thing for me to do and a great place to place my attention while I was and distract me from the fact that I was like missing my family. Thankfully, my mom's still here, so I would just either go to my apartment in Brooklyn and do some recording, or go to Long Island, see my mom, get an amazing home cooked meal, and do further, do more recording.
Right, right.
There's the Universal Audio aux, and I discovered that during the pandemic, and that was a godsend, just because you're able to use it, as an attenuator and record at a low volume but get a great tone, or you can record directly into your DAW and also get a great tone, but also get a myriad of cabinet situations and room, different environments, different microphone simulations, and that just made going down the rabbit hole so much more fun.
Sure.
And just really gave a chance to really hone in on exactly the tone you're trying to get.
Right.
And in many instances achieve it.
You can use your amps, but you don't get evicted.
Exactly.
Kirk, thanks so much for sitting down with us, man. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise, I appreciate it.
And I know you're headed to a sound check this afternoon, and so
yeah. The tonight's show is actually on hiatus this week, and I'm playing a memorial for a Gibson employee who passed away, and I'm playing with musician Adam Franklin, who's in the band Swerve Driver. So he worked with Josh. That's who the benefit is for, Josh Stoddard. And so we're playing songs that Josh was fans of, songs that Josh played on. And so it's just a great opportunity for all the people that knew Josh and loved Josh, for us all to get together and see how we're all connected through him and enjoy, talk about his life and how he inspired us all.
Right, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, man, have a great time with that.
Thank you so much.
Once again, thanks so much for sitting down with us, and please come out to Sweetwater sometime. We'd love to have you visit.
I would love to check that out.
Yeah. Bring the whole band with you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right on. And thank you for joining us here. We're coming to you from the Cutting Room in New York City. Kirk Douglas, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater.